Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for your patience. We just wanted to give everybody a few minutes to log on. I think we're upwards of 40-ish people. Hopefully in the next couple of minutes, more people will be logging on. So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. What I wanted to do was to start with some very quick introductions of those that are on the panel this afternoon. We have a presentation that we're going to go through that will cover many of the pre-submitted questions. And then we will also, as part of the presentation, discuss how you can submit further questions as we are presenting if we don't happen to answer your questions or you're looking for further clarification. So the session does run today from 3 to 4 p.m. And again, we're always available beyond this by email or phone call should you have any other individualized questions. So again, thank you very much for joining us. I would like to introduce the following. We have Mr. Dave Francolangia with us today, who is our Director of Athletics as well as PE and Health. We have Mrs. Patty Pyrus joining us, who is our Director of School Counseling. We have Assistant Principal, Mrs. Barbara Ventura joining us. And we have our new Assistant Principal, Mrs. Katie Amenta, Assistant Principal, also joining us as well. So thank you, everybody. So I'm going to switch our screen over to the PowerPoint that we have prepared. And now I just want to present. Okay, I'm sorry, everybody. I apologize for that. So thank you for your patience. So during the presentation, if you have questions, if you have the Google form handy that was sent in the previous emails, you may submit questions to the Google form still. We have people monitoring that. Your other option is to email Mrs. Amenta at kamenta@berlinschools.org. So I'll give everybody just a second to write down that email address if you don't have that Google form link handy that was sent in some previous emails. Okay. So again, our objective is to provide a safe and productive teaching and learning environment for all students and staff at Berlin High School. The last time we had a forum in July, we were initially talking about a full reopening where 100% of our students we were going to have returning to the building. And now we're obviously in a different mode in which we are going to be in a hybrid mode. So again, our main considerations are face coverings, social distancing, cohorting to the best of our ability, which is difficult at the high school, but we have developed some ways in which we can maximize some form of cohorting, as well as considering transportation for all of our students. Okay. I'm sorry, I don't know why there we go. Okay. So, of major concern for families, I know, is the face covering. So I do want to let you know that they are required at all times unless otherwise directed, which would mean that there would be an appropriate place for a student to go in order to take a mask break. Again, that's point number 2 here in terms of mask breaks will be provided as feasible. We are looking for teachers just similar to, this is going to be district-wide all across the district, for there to be hopefully a safe place within the classroom where a student may be able to go and take a mask break, or they can perchance step outside into the hallway and take a mask break. Some students may opt to, also go get a drink, or they may also be in the restroom, and students will be able to remove their mask during lunchtime when they are eating, but we have set up some provisions for that. So again, this is something that we'll be working with teachers on in terms of working with students. We know that it's difficult to wear a mask for a long period of time, but again, we're all working to be as understanding as possible. We are providing 2 double layer cloth masks. They will be provided to students during the first in-person advisory. So it does mean that your child does need to have their own mask when they arrive to school or on the very first day that they will be in person. Students may wear their own masks. We are simply offering, we are providing 2 cloth masks for students. But if they would like to wear their own mask, they may. And again, they must be a double layer, clean. They must cover the nose and mouth and fit snugly. Valve systems, gaiters, single layer, scarves, or bandanas are not going to be permitted. So that is something that we will be reviewing with students on the very first day of school with all students. Students and adults will be appropriately addressed and disciplined if not in compliance. We believe very firmly that the mask is actually our best defense in terms of keeping schools open for everybody. So we are going to be very strict on this. And if we have people that are just refusing to comply, they will lose the privilege of being in school and they will have to attend school remotely. Now, keep in mind that, again, we recognize that students may struggle with this a bit. And my point is that our goal is to work with every student in order to help them feel comfortable, remind them of the expectation, perhaps take a break. But again, it is something that we know that some students may struggle with, and our goal is to work with them. But again, if it's just a flat out refusal to comply, then there are going to be, other consequences in place. So the next thing is our hybrid cohort plan. So as you've received some communication, the purpose of the hybrid plan is to it allows for increased social distancing, fewer students in the building each week. We have fewer than 10% that have opted for full remote learning. We will be using a weekly rotation, so a week A and a week B, and the schedule will be posted every 2 weeks. We'll post it to Schoology. We also always post that schedule on our website. The hybrid plan allows every student the opportunity to experience in-person learning on a regular basis. If you are on a remote week, so remote week will be synchronous, or what we would consider real time. So students would need to be online, logged into their classes, basically from 7:25 until 2:10 with an appropriate break in between classes, just as though they would be passing time in school, or they would not obviously remote in for lunchtime as well. Students will follow the same course and bell schedule for in-person or remote. So same course listing, same course schedule, as well as the same bell schedule is going to be followed whether you are in person or remote. And that is whether or not you're in a cohort or whether or not you've opted for 100% remote learning. So I just want to show you a picture of, this is our camera system that we have set up in the classrooms. As you can see, it is on a mobile stand. We are, I would say, at about 65% set up for these in our classrooms. We are working to have the others in place. Our hope is that they will all be in place in time for September 8th. We do have an alternate plan in place in order for the live stream to continue. So I want to assure everybody that there will be a camera and remote system in place for the first day of school. But this is what all of the classrooms will have. You can see the web camera is at the top. On the monitor here will be the students that are coming in remotely. It will provide an opportunity for the students in the class. The remote students and the students in the class will have an opportunity to interact with one another. The audio, we've tested this out. The audio is actually very good. The teacher has an opportunity to use a remote from anywhere in the room, and they have some options in terms of whether they're seeing the full class or perhaps they have it connected into the smartboard to see the instruction that's going on in the smartboard and still hear the audio. It is a very high-tech system, and we're very grateful that the district has invested in this system for every classroom in our building. As far as remote learning, whether you are cohort or full remote, we will be using the Zoom rooms, as you can see, via the advanced webcam system. And the links will be posted in Schoology. So we are currently working on the backside where there is going to be a connection between Schoology, PowerSchool, and the Zoom rooms, where the links are going to be automatically generated for each class. So the idea is my period 2 math class will always have the same link, and it will be, as part of my schedule in Schoology that way. We are doing a lot of teacher training next week with the webcam system. It is a first time through. We've actually had several teachers come in to do some training already, and they will also be assisting in training other teachers. The system, it will be real-time instruction and learning. So what the students are getting in person the students from home will be getting as much as that as we can possibly do. Now, understand that modification adjustments will need to be made appropriately. So if perchance there's a science lab going on, the science teacher may provide an alternate assignment for those that are remote, and then when they perhaps come in, they will then conduct the lab. For those that are full remote, there will be ways for students to participate in the lab, whether it's through observations, contributing to the discussion, as well as perhaps taking a look at some simulations and some demonstrations. And there may be some opportunity for, let's say, when PE, if they go outside to participate in an activity, for remote students, they may be instructed to say, go outside or do some exercising within their home, and then they would come back and report back. So again, there will be some modifications and adjustments as necessary based on the instruction as well as based on the content area. The lessons will not be recorded, so it is important that students show up on time for each class. They will not be recorded and posted at a later time. So that is a little bit of a shift in terms of something that people may have been thinking about. Now, that's not to say there are times when teachers will post a video for something, whether they may post an explanation that they're giving or a demo lesson or something like that. Teachers still have an option to do that. But I just wanted to be clear that the lessons are not going to be recorded and posted. We are expecting students to, when you are in your cohort week or full remote, that you do attend class remotely on schedule. Communications will be sent in a timely manner if systems are down. So I'm sure many of you heard on the news yesterday that Zoom fully went down across the country. We do need to expect that, there may perhaps be a few glitches every now and then when it comes to technology. So we just really need to be patient, and we will work to make sure that we send out timely communications when that happens. I know that there were some questions about if I'm starting in a cohort or I'm a full remote, how do I know where and when to sign on? So we will be sending specific instructions related to that next week. So students will need to go and look in their Schoology accounts. For our 9th grade students, we are planning to put some communication together along with some very specific instructions so they know exactly how to sign on to Schoology in order to find those links. Again, just a few more remote learning expectations. These are fairly similar to what we used last year when we were doing some of the Zoom classes, logging in and attending class on time. We are asking that students keep their camera on unless otherwise directed by the teacher. We want students at home to actively engage in the lesson, to be a part of the discussions, actively engage in the assignments. We are also going to be working with students to actively engage with students that are remote so that there definitely is a sense of the class being together as much as possible. We do expect everybody to abide by an acceptable use policy, a policy of technology. There's video recording is prohibited, and expectations will definitely be reviewed with students. And again, this is a graphic that goes through a few more details that we updated this just a little bit from last year, but this will be reviewed with all of our students, whether it's through advisory as well as in their individual classes. As far as attendance, we will follow all of our attendance protocols as outlined in the student handbook. So if you're reporting an absence, you want to just follow the protocols that are listed in the handbook. If a student is not well enough to physically be in school, but is able to attend remotely, that is permitted. So let's say if I'm in cohort A and cohort A is meeting in person that week, and let's say maybe I have to quarantine for some reason, or let's say I have one of the symptoms, but I'm really not feeling, so I can't be in school, but I still feel well enough to attend remotely. That is completely fine. We welcome that. We want students to join in remotely if they can, and they will be marked present for that particular class. So we are working on some of our attendance codes to adjust that accordingly, so that we will have record for students that are attending in person as well as students that are attending remotely. Students do not have to attend study hall remotely. So if you see that on your schedule and you are in a remote week, you do not need to attend study hall. Attendance will be taken in all other classes, including advisory, and marked accordingly. And again, all attendance criteria applies. At the high school level, as you are well aware, not only do you have to achieve a certain grade level or grade point average in order to pass a class, but you do need to make sure that you are in attendance accordingly. And all of that is outlined in our student handbook, and there's no change from previous years when it comes to that. As far as instruction and assessment information, again, we adjusted our schedule to a block schedule. Classes will be approximately 90 minutes, and we will follow a 6-day rotation. In-person and remote students will follow the same schedule as I noted before. There are going to be some department-specific protocols and adjustments as needed: science and food labs, music instruction, PE. Again, that may have to do with safety protocols within the classroom. And again, also with remote instruction for those that have to come in remotely, whether it's via cohort or for full remote. Assessments will be varied based on in-person and remote settings. Assessments may also look different in order to adequately assess student progress. And we are going to spend some time with our students focusing on academic integrity. There were several questions that were submitted with concerns regarding student cheating, and the like, especially being in a remote world and not a teacher not being able to like physically be in front of them and watch them. But we do have some discussion going on with teachers. Remember that they haven't arrived yet. They'll be here next week, but we will be spending some time in departments discussing assessment strategies in order to maximize really understanding and learning and providing feedback for students regarding their progress appropriately, and trying our best to set up a system that is really as fair as possible for all students. So assessments may take a little bit of a different format. They may not necessarily be long assessments. They may be shorter, quick assessments. They may alternate weeks so that students are taking assessments in person versus remote, or there may be adjustments. And again, some of that needs to be left to the teacher discretion within the department. The departments have been very good about developing protocols together so that there is some consistency across the departments. And some of that is really going to be based on the content that is being delivered as well. But I do want to make a special note that we are going to be having a focus in terms of talking about academic integrity with all of our students. Facility highlights, I just want to show you a few pictures from around the building thus far. So as you can see, we have various signage in a lot of different places, arrows on the floor. There will be plenty of signage all throughout the building in terms of reminding students to wear their masks if they have symptoms. We have a few areas that have been designated like one way. This happens to be a picture of the English hallway, which is kind of tight. So that's now a one-way hallway. We've designated a couple of narrow stairwells that will be one way. We've marked traffic patterns on the floors in the hallway as well as in the stairwells. This is what I've done is I have a couple pictures here of a couple of classrooms just to try to give you a visual. So we have removed a lot of excess furniture from classrooms. Right now, our goal is to have no more than 14 or 15 students physically in a classroom at any one time. We felt as though by spreading the desks out, this would really kind of provide a maximum amount of space, and spread them out accordingly, and also allow some space for the teacher as they deliver instruction. So I just wanted to provide you with a little bit of a visual in terms of what some of the desk spacing looks like. We do have some small classrooms. Our desks are a little bit of a funky shape. But we can, with the hybrid model, we do feel really confident in being able to space students out appropriately. I keep going the wrong way, I apologize. So I also wanted to take a look at a couple of our cafeteria tables. So if you recall, we discussed this at the last presentation, but students will be eating not only in the cafeteria, but also in the B gym, and seniors will be permitted to eat outside. So we have purchased these dividers for the tables that will not only be in the cafeteria, but also in the B gym as well. Right now with the hybrid model, we're looking at only needing to accommodate about 50 to 60 students in each of those large spaces. So students will be able to spread out, they'll be able to take their mask off. You can see that we have the plexiglass shield. We were able to add an additional lunch wave. And we have some time built in between so that the custodians can really sanitize the tables in between. Every classroom has hand sanitizer in it. We have hand sanitizer all throughout the building as well, in addition to other cleaning supplies. We also did some purchasing of some additional tables out. So we have an area set up out here. This is that landing outside the B gym and the auditorium. And we also have some additional tables that we put in senior court so that not only can seniors be out there, but if a class wanted to go out into that space and be outside and spread out, that they would be able to do that as well. So I have a few miscellaneous points to go through that were addressing some of the questions that came in. So there is going to be safety training provided for all students, and that will take place the first 2 in-person days. So while we recognize that Cohort A will be starting on September 8th, we will have 2 advisory days where we will review all of these. We will review quite a bit of safety information those first 2 days in advisory for students that are physically present. The following week, when Cohort B comes in, we will also then review the same safety procedures for those students who are going to be in the building for the first time. So keep in mind, we recognize that we're going to be repeating procedures, but we want to make sure that every student from Cohort A has the same experience as every student in Cohort B and vice versa. So also on those advisory days in the beginning for our full remote students, we actually have been talking about one of the things we're planning on doing is having a remote advisory for those first couple of days, just to address some things for students that are going to be remote full time. Masks and ID distribution will take place in that first in-person advisory. We will give every student their masks as well as their IDs. If you recall, one of the things that we talked about is we are requiring all students to carry their ID. It will have a barcode on it, and we have students scanning in and out of multiple places, including restrooms, the health office, school counseling. If they come in late or leave early, they're going to be scanning. So we've set this system up as a way to assist us with some contact tracing purposes. While we typically always know exactly where a student has been because of their schedule, there obviously are some places where they go, while they're in class and things like that. And by using the scan system, that will basically be able to help us, trace where they have been. As far as the morning procedure, no students will be in the building before 7:05 unless there is a pre-arrangement. So if they are coming for extra help, they should have a pass from the teacher that they will show Mr. Kemling in the front lobby when they come in. But otherwise, all students do need to wait outside until 7:05. So if you are planning to drive your student to school, we would ask that you please not arrive before 7:05. As buses pull in, we will have students disembark from buses, basically 2 buses at a time. Bus students will enter in the main entrance. All other students that are being dropped off or students that are driving to school will enter through the Gibney gym. So that is a shift in protocol. Students will report directly to their block 1 class. So basically on odd days, that's going to be period 1. On even days, that's going to be period 2. If they are getting breakfast from the school, they may then go to the school cafeteria, but they need to remain in the school cafeteria until they are dismissed to their period 1 class. One of the things that we have to do is we can't have the students wandering and walking through the hallways or congregating in the hallways in the morning. So we do have to have them report directly to their period 1 class unless they are getting breakfast at school. So in terms of how long will we be in hybrid, Mr. Benigni discussed a timeline of about 6 weeks, and then things will be evaluated at that point in time. There was a question about how many in-person days we will have. Unfortunately, that is a question that it's difficult to answer at this point in time. Some of that will depend on how long we're in our hybrid mode, how quickly can we move to a full in-person mode, or do we, our hope isn't to have to do this, but do we actually have to go to a full remote plan? But again, we are working to keep things as safe as possible because we want students here. There was a question regarding air quality. I do want to let you know that we do have a constant airflow in our system and exchange throughout the building. So air is constantly flowing and being exchanged throughout the system. As it's being exchanged, it's also going through a filtration system all throughout the building. We maximize the fresh air based on certain qualities. Some of that has to do with like the size of the room, what's going on outside. The more outside air you let in on a 95 humid day, the more it would negatively impact the air in the building. So I just want to let you know that they do check that frequently. They have it running at a maximum capacity so that you have the best quality air in the building. So as you know, with the renovation, we're considered like a closed system because we don't have windows that open. But we will prop doors open as necessary throughout the building. Because our building will be locked all throughout the outside. You know, it is okay for teachers to open their classroom doors. We'll have bathroom doors propped open. But again, we do have a constant airflow and exchange going on throughout the building. And they do change the filters regularly. There was a question about if you wanted to change your learning mode. So let's say you were hybrid and you wanted to go full remote, or you're full remote and you want to go hybrid. We would ask that you contact your child's school counselor and their assigned assistant principal, and then just give us a day or two so that we have an appropriate transition day to make that transition and communicate with all parties. Communication, my goal is to be able to send out at least one weekly communication, hopefully on Thursdays. There may be weeks where we have to communicate more frequently, but we also want to try to streamline information so that you're not getting bombarded with too many communications throughout the week, because then I also feel as though you lose information throughout, with too many communications. I do want to make a mention that we are going to have open house. It will be Wednesday, September 16th, and we will be doing some sort of virtual format with that. And so stay tuned for more details as we work to organize that. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Amenta just to discuss briefly social emotional wellness.
Hi, everyone. So as you can see on the slide, I'll bullet through this information and provide a little more detail. So training and support will be provided for staff and students in August and the beginning of September through professional learning, safety protocols, transition programming, re-entering programming, emotional support, and academic support. We did have a 9th grade orientation this past week where we touched upon a little bit of this with some team building and just some Q&A to help them transition. We also were successful with a remote session where we had Mrs. Pyrus, Mrs. Nascimento, Mr. Rudy, and a student representative also tune in with about, I would say, 18 or so students zooming in. So that was a successful session as well. We are also revamping our advisory program. So we will have curriculum that will focus on safety and well-being for increased social emotional health. Advisory will also offer an opportunity to reflect, connect, and be a part of the Berlin High School community. So there's a number of activities as well as research that's been planned to help provide a well-rounded experience to advisory that might look a little different than it has in years past. And we've been using a team already that came together over the summer months with school counseling, related services, as well as a number of teachers that came together and volunteered a bunch of hours just to help make this the best possible experience for students. And then lastly, BHS will follow district protocols as far as health screening, stay home policies, and containment of shutdown. And should students have or families have questions about these programs or want greater details, certainly reach out to me and I would be glad to support a response and give you further detail.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So given that this is primarily 11th and 12th grade families, we know that you have some questions regarding SATs, PSATs, and some of college planning process in light of what's happening with COVID. So Mrs. Pyrus is going to address those things next.
Sorry about that. I forgot to unmute myself. Hello, everybody. One of the biggest questions I think people are having this year is one of the biggest changes that's occurring is what's going on with standardized testing, and most specifically in terms of SATs and PSATs. So typically, current seniors, you know that in the springtime, students should have taken a SAT school day for all juniors. And unfortunately, that could not happen this year. The good news is that College Board has put a fall SAT day in place for all seniors. And that's going to occur on Wednesday, September 23rd. So it is free for all seniors. There's no registration needed. Students just need to show up that day. Seniors show up that day and they can take the SAT. The scores will be received on October 15th, which for nearly all colleges, if students want to submit those scores, is in plenty of time to meet early action and early decision deadlines. There are also other opportunities for SAT that occur on Saturdays, and BHS is hosting all of those this coming fall. And those are going to happen on September 26th, October 3rd, November 7th, and December 5th. Those you would need to register for, and every student has a College Board account. So the student would just need to log into their College Board account and register for those, any of those dates. In light of the cancellation of a lot of the SAT opportunities in the spring, a lot of colleges are going SAT optional for the incoming freshman class, so our current seniors. There's a couple of sites that are super important to consult. Obviously, each school's website would tell you, but there's a nice running list on fairtest.org, which lists all the schools that are always SAT optional, but then adds in the schools that are going SAT optional for the class of 2021. And then NACAC is also keeping a list of SAT optional schools as well. And so you can check them out too. PSATs for juniors is an important part of the fall as well. And that is also going to be scheduled for this year. We're anticipating that to take place on Wednesday, October 15th, again, free for all juniors. The scores will be released in early December. We're not quite sure of a date yet. And those scores are helpful for students to take a look at in order to practice and prepare for the SATs, which they would take in the spring of their junior year.
Real quick, Ms. Pyrus, it's October 14th, Wednesday.
Oh, really?
14th.
Okay, sorry about that.
We'll update the PowerPoint
Okay.
with the correct date. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. This coming Saturday, we are hosting our first SAT, and some students and parents had some questions about what that's going to look like. What's going to happen is that prior to admission into the testing room, all students are going to have an admissions survey to confirm their health, which if anyone's gone to pretty much any kind of appointment these days, you know that you're asked questions about where you've been and how you feel, just to make sure that students are screened in that way. Each student will then be assigned a room, and College Board mandates that all students are 6 feet apart. And so what you'll see is there'll probably be about 8 students per classroom in order to maintain that 6 feet apart distance. A couple of classrooms are then assigned to one restroom so that you're not having a horde of students trying to fight each other in a 5-minute break to get to the restroom. Instead, we've spread out the rooms so that a couple of rooms each have a restroom that they're going to be using, and the breaks are going to be staggered so that there's only a few students, so basically 8 students needing to access the restrooms. Per College Board, students must also wear a mask at all times during testing. So even though they're 6 feet apart while they're sitting at their test, they still need to be wearing their masks. And those breaks I alluded to earlier, typically they're about 5 minutes or 10 minutes. College Board has doubled those breaks. So a 5-minute break would be a 10-minute break, 10-minute break would be a 20-minute break, so that students have the time to be able to use the restroom or have a snack and still be able to maintain their social distancing.
Oh, sorry.
No problem.
There we go.
Thank you. So then the other questions that have come up is, what is the college and post-secondary process going to look like for seniors in light of everything that's going on? So it's going to look pretty much the same on our end. We're going to have individualized student meetings with each student, where we're going to go through the list of their post-secondary programs. We're going to teach them how to use Naviance to request their transcripts and their teacher letters of recommendation and their council letter of recommendation. And then students can also request to have as many meetings as they need to meet with us as well. We have a new school counseling administrative assistant this year. Her name is Mrs. Menio. And as always, students can come to the counseling office to request an appointment. But an exciting addition this year is that students are also going to be able to schedule appointments online. And so we're going to make those links available to parents and to students within the next week, so that you can access us online without having to come to the counseling office, or if students are on their virtual learning, that they can just sign up right away pretty easily. Other programming that we typically have is we always have a financial aid evening for parents that goes over the FAFSA and different forms of aid and scholarship money, things like that. This year, we will be doing it virtually. So it will be a Zoom session. We'll let you know when that's going to be, but sometime late in September. We're also going to go over local scholarships, which are a really important place for students to look at free money for college. And there's a link that's available where students we recommend take a look at every couple of weeks and see what's out there for them. Other programming you'll see is we're going to have workshops on completing the Common Application, resume writing, interviewing skills, and essay writing. These are all things that students started during their junior workshop, but we know that they're not all finished or they may need to take a second look at it. So we'll be offering opportunities for students to meet either in person or virtually to review any of those topics that they need some extra assistance with. The other big question for post-secondary planning is many colleges, not all colleges, but many colleges monitor documented interest, meaning how interested is the student in the particular post-secondary college, university program. So there's still lots of opportunities to do that. So there's going to be meetings with admissions representatives that we will be publishing. There's going to be virtual college fairs, and there's going to be virtual rep visits, and those will be announced and advertised during morning announcements, which I think parents can get a daily update of the morning announcements, so you can see that. And then it'll also be posted for students in Schoology so they can see when they're going to occur. Students are also encouraged to email their admissions reps too. Admissions reps know that they're not going to be going to schools this year, and so they're looking to meet with students, and they're setting up one-on-one times just to answer questions. So definitely students are encouraged to do that as well. Another big thing that occurs usually in the spring of junior year and the fall of senior year is visiting campuses, again, to show that documented interest, but also for the students to get a feel for what the campus looks like and whether they think they're going to be successful there. So each school's website, you can consult and see if they're accepting campus tours and visits. Otherwise, NACAC again has put out a resource for where you can put in the criteria you're looking for and look and see if they're doing different kinds of visits or tours or overnight events, lots of different opportunities. So you can see on that website which schools are doing what. For students' purposes, I would also recommend taking a look at some virtual tours. Campusreal.org and campustours.com are fabulous. They give you a 360 view of different parts of the campus. It's not, we'd love to be in person, but if you can't, this is a great opportunity to check out the campus.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Pyrus.
Thank you.
Mrs. Pyrus, before we move on briefly, just because a question did come through,
Sure.
and I know we're going to get to questions in a moment, but somebody did write in just now and ask if the SAT on August 29th is still happening. And I think you mentioned it, but perhaps they missed it.
Yes, we are still hosting the SAT on August 29th.
Okay, next, Mr. Franklangia.
Hello, everybody. It's been an interesting summer to say the least, obviously, but we've been in meetings. All the athletic directors have been in meetings constantly, sometimes twice a week, 3 times a week with our conference and the state, taking a look at what's going to happen with sports. As of Monday, actually Sunday night, sports are a go. Kids are going to be back conditioning again. Football, I believe, is starting this evening at 7 o'clock. But official practices where kids, student athletes are going to be with their coaches and actually start touching the ball, and soccer balls, volleyballs, cross country, and so forth, will be starting on this Saturday, August. Some coaches have elected to start on Monday. That information will be given to you once we button down everything, as this information is still rather new. The conditioning aspect is just what you see on the PowerPoint screen here, is that there's definitely modifications that we have. And the modifications are cohorts. Kids are going to be in cohorts for a good duration of the time. A great resource for any parent to take a look at is if you go on CISC website and under the main page, there's going to be a little screen that says 100 years athletics, and it's going to be a 2020, 2021 fall sports plan. There, you'll have all aspects of each individual sport in terms of the dues, and not the dues, but what coaches can do and what coaches can't do at this particular time. And you can see from the plan, it's kind of a gradual buildup to fall sports actually competing within the conference. There's limitations as to that as well. And there's still conversations about high-risk sports. And those high-risk sports are right now, per DPH and CIAC and with the governor, is football and volleyball because of the closeness of the sport, consistently closeness of the sport. So they're working on that. And there's still going to be conversations. We actually have a meeting scheduled this Thursday to hopefully confirm a lot. Things, the governor has been using the term fluid. The CIC has been using the term fluid. I'm going to keep that same term going. Everything is fluid at this particular point. But the athletic directors, the coaching staff has been unbelievable. Communicating with me, myself communicating with them as soon as I get information. And I'm hopeful that we're going to have a fall season. I really am. The CIC has done a lot of work. Your coaches have done a lot of work, and the administration here has done a ton of work regarding what we can do for our student athletes and making sure that they're in a safe environment and upholding to the protocols at hand. So with that being said, you will be hearing from the coaching staff by this Thursday or Friday with up-to-date information. But as of now, we're a go for this particular Saturday. As I said, there are some teams Saturday. Some teams will be participating in conditioning this week. Swim is going to be starting on Monday, but all that contact and communication will be through the coaches. If you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to call. Don't hesitate to email me. Give me at least 12 hours, and I'll get back to you soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint. That was the last of the information, and I understand that that was a lot and it took a while, but we do feel as though there was additional information that was definitely pertinent for our 11th and 12th grade families, particularly related to post-secondary planning and SATs and things like that, because I know that that has been of great concern. So at this point in time, what we're going to do is take any additional questions that have been submitted, whether they've been submitted through the Google form or they've been submitted via email from Mrs. Amenta. So.
Okay, I have a few questions here, so I'll read them off and I'm sure we'll jump in as appropriate. So the first question asks, is there a schedule to enter the Berlin High School building for 10th graders? And I think Mrs. Eustace, you answered that a little while back. So the plan right now is for all students who are entering the building from a bus drop off would be through the main entrance, and then students who will be entering the building through the Gibney Gym entrance will be students who are part of parent drop off and or student drivers. That was the first question. So here's our next question. It states, if it becomes necessary to transition to an all online learning, can students obtain PE credit with confirmation of participation in a sport from a coach?
At this point in time, that has not been entertained. I don't necessarily foresee that happening, that we would just continue with our health and wellness curriculum as appropriate. But certainly, so I in this day and age, I wouldn't necessarily rule anything out, but that is something that has not been on the table for discussion at this point in time.
Okay. All right, the next question asks if the desks inside the classrooms are 6 feet apart.
So the desks inside the classroom, from corner to corner, they are not 6 feet apart, but from where our desks are like trapezoid shape. So from where the center of where the student sits to the center of where the student sits, it is 6 feet apart. Now, keep in mind that the guidelines state it's 6 feet apart where feasible. And the other thing too is we are requiring students to keep their masks on.
Okay, the next question asks, will students be required to wipe down their desk area at the beginning and or end of each class?
Yes, so every classroom is equipped with disinfectant as well as a multitude of paper towels. the teacher will have the student and also hand sanitizer. So the plan is for every student to sanitize their hands. They will wipe their desk. Obviously, I think the order would be reversed. Like you'd come in, you'd wipe your desk down, you'd sanitize your hands when you get in the classroom and when you leave the classroom. And then they will go through a full sanitizing at the end of every school day from our custodial staff.
Okay, and the last question that came through was a little bit more specific, but I think it's good information for all. So the question was in regards to who is my student's assistant principal. And so the way that assistant principal cohorts are assigned is Mrs. Ventura has students with the last name of A through L, and I have students with the last name that fall between M and Z. And let me check one more time to see if there's any additional questions. That is all we have.
And that includes the spreadsheet as well as all the email questions.
Correct.
Okay. So I think on that note, I'll give it another minute or two in case anybody wants to jump in with another question. We have a few minutes left. We tried to be as comprehensive, with the questions that came in ahead of time, and also just kind of trying to figure out what did you really want to know. But I do want to make a couple positive notes. We have had some summer conditioning with a few of our sports programs that has been very successful from a safety and a health standpoint. I also want to celebrate the fact that we ran a full week of band camp. It was somewhat modified. And we had beautiful weather, fortunately, last week, where they were able to participate outside. But we had 80 students here, in addition to adults that were running this camp. The kids were wonderful. They were really cooperative. They were very happy to be back. I was asking them, how did the week go? And they're like, oh my gosh, it was great. And I think for them, it was just such a mental booster to come back and do something that felt a little normal, even if it was in a different way. And the other thing that we had great success with is we had a wonderful freshman orientation on Friday where we ran 2 sessions. We had students in very small groups that were facilitated by faculty as well as some upper class students. The upper class students were thrilled to come and help out. Again, they were just so excited to be back at school and experiencing things. And I think overall our freshman students had a really good experience. It was a really great opportunity to get them into the building. And I think I want to share that with you, that I know there's a lot of nerves and a lot of anxiety out there about having everybody come back, but we are all working really hard to keep things, as safe as possible, maintaining everybody's health. We also want to instill that responsibility on the part of our students as well as our staff, that it's everybody's responsibility to help keep our schools open. And I really feel as though, having seen what we've already had a chance to see and experience with our students over the summer and definitely last week, that they're ready. They're ready to come back. The majority of them, they're happy to come back. And they really want to work hard at keeping school open. I know that it's really important for them to be here, to be with their teachers, and to be with their friends. So again, we want to have a really positive experience, but we also want to make sure that we're supporting everybody appropriately as well. So any additional questions coming in?
Yes, we have one more that I see here. So the question says, will we be making sure that students are maintaining social distancing and mask protocols in the parking lot after school?
Yes, so that is part of the protocol that we have to review with students. And to be honest with you, these protocols are new, and it is going to take a few days for students to get used to it. But our job as adults is also to hold students accountable, provide them with reminders, which we did last week. I know part of the instinct was students got out of the building and they wanted to take their mask off, but we reminded them, keep your mask on until you get in your car, because clearly they're not all standing 6 feet apart. And if they're getting on their bus, you have to wear a mask as well. So I just want to let you know that we will continue to reiterate all of those safety protocols. We understand the mask truly, in addition to all the cleaning and the disinfecting, we are very serious about the mask. The mask is really important, and we do honestly believe it's our best defense. And we will definitely work very hard with students to ensure, as well as adults, just to make sure that everybody is compliant.
Hold on, we have another one coming in. Okay. Okay, so this question reads, I'm unmuted. How will home technical connect difficulties? So I think what this reads is, how will difficulties at home with technical issues be handled in regards to attendance? So good question.
So in terms of that, what I would expect is that now, depending on the type of technical issue that's happening, if you're able to send an email to the teacher, please send an email to the teacher, but you can also make a phone call to the attendance line and we will mark that accordingly. While the student may be technically absent from class, we will make an appropriate note, and all of that would be taken into consideration should there be any issues or questions down the line related to attendance.
Okay, we have another question. This question asks, just clarifying that all seniors are to report to school for SAT day, regardless of whether it's your in-person week.
So I want to clarify, the SAT for seniors is optional. We are purchasing, I don't want to say we're purchasing, we are ordering enough tests for every senior that wants to take a test. Our expectation, we are hoping that all seniors will take advantage of the opportunity because it is a no-cost opportunity. They also will get 5 free sends of their test scores. Even if they're not planning to pursue college next year, it's good to have that testing kind of in your back pocket and having had it done, and you can send your scores at a later date. So yes, regardless of what week it falls on, if it's an A week, yes, we would want all A and B seniors as well as full remote seniors if they are comfortable coming to the building, for the people that are full remote coming to the building for testing purposes. We will send out more information specifically to the organization of that day. We're still trying to fine tune a few things. We want to ensure that our seniors have an optimal testing situation, given the fact that it was a lost opportunity in the spring. And so we do have some planning. We have some, I just want to let you know, we've been in conversation with some planning. We just have to kind of get approval on a few things moving forward with our plan. But yes, all seniors would be expected to attend that day.
And I just want to reiterate too, that even though it is an optional choice for the students to take the SAT, I highly recommend that students do take it. The scores are good for 5 years. So if students decide a couple years from now they want to go to college, the scores are still there, they're still good. Also, for some students that might be thinking of going to community college, their scores could exempt them from some placement testing or some introductory courses. So it's definitely worthwhile taking.
Okay, the next question that came through was, how will fire drills work? And I'll take this question. So we've worked closely with our director of security and safety here at Berlin High School and throughout the district. And so we made some modifications to our typical protocols for fire drills. I'll be honest with you, a drill is a walkthrough. It's where we provide information for our students as to where the nearest exit would be, given the position of the building that they're in. Right, so safety and risk always rises to the top. So you would exit your nearest a door, and then students will be meeting with their advisory teacher as they have in the past. So this will be new for our incoming 9th graders, which we will go through in the first 2 days of in-person training. Once they meet with their advisory teacher, that advisory teacher will take attendance. And students will be required to keep their masks on. So this just came up, with the question in regards to, will we ask students to keep their masks on outdoors or in the parking lots or here in the front of the building? And the answer is yes. So we talked about this even with drills. So we're going to ask students to keep their masks on even during the drill, and maintain a proper social distance outdoors as well, which we'll we'll work with our staff and faculty about what this would look like in the parking lot during this drill. We've also implemented a modification of having a staggered reentry with including more reentry points than we've typically had in the past to help spread students out, which we will also go through with staff and students. And in regards to other drills, the same idea with a lockdown drill, it's going to be more of a walkthrough versus in the event of an actual emergency where that risk would be safety. So we would, all go through the full channels of the actual drill, which we will walk through as well, and huddle and move to a corner of the room. We will not do that during the drill and the walkthrough with students. Students at this point have had years of this sort of practice, so we feel confident that walking through what that would look like in the classrooms here at the high school or various spaces at the high school in a drill would be appropriate. I think we have another question. Okay. So this next question asks, is there going to be a dashboard on COVID metrics at the school or for the red, yellow, green metrics that are driving decisions about remote versus hybrid or versus in person? What are those metrics and those thresholds for decision making?
So as far as the metrics are concerned, I have not heard that the district is going to plan to put metrics up. Again, I would see that as more of a district-wide type of protocol. So that is probably something more directed towards the superintendent's office, central office in terms of that decision-making. I do want to assure you that our superintendent is in close contact with the Central Connecticut Health District every week, like multiple phone calls and in communication in terms of watching the data, following the protocols and the recommendations that are coming forth from the state as well as from our health district specifically. And I can assure you that everybody's going to be watching very closely as schools begin to open up. While we are delayed a week, I know that there are some schools that are going to be starting next week. We'll have a sense of how things are going, and then, we'll be on board the week after. That is our hope. I'm really confident in that happening. So again, I know that everybody will be watching the data, and we will be monitoring student attendance very, very closely.
So I think that concludes all the questions at this time that we have.
Okay. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. I think we had roughly 70 people that joined us today. We will post this. This session is recorded, so we will post this and it will be up on our YouTube channel here for anybody that wants to revisit the PowerPoint or some of the information that we discussed. If you have students that are in 9th and 10th grade, I'm going to be very honest with you, the PowerPoint's going to be pretty much identical without the college planning and the SAT information. So unless you really want to hear the information again, don't feel like you need to show up tomorrow unless you really want to. But again, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank everybody that was here on our panel. And if you do have any further questions, don't hesitate to call or to send an email, and we'll be happy to answer those questions for you. So thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon.